I think my first goal was to feed my family, but we understood that we were onto something really big, something that could take local raw materials, create jobs, create a high-value product that could have all kinds of benefits for America and for the world. At that point, we started talking about changing the world.
We've been farming here about 150 years. It would be my great-grandfather that came here, and his father, which would be my great-great-grandfather. They came over here back in about 56 or 54, someplace in there.
We worked hard. We worked 7 days a week. We milked cows twice a day. We ran a large farming operation. And we were all involved, so from a very young age we were hard workers and creative workers and always trying to figure out a better way to farm.
Dad was very much a tinkerer and interested in doing things new and doing things well. He was very conservation-minded when it came to farming. Some of the things he did early on was like, hey, we're burning way too much LP when we dry our grain, so let's do something different. We had a furnace to burn cornstalk stacks to heat the grain dryer that he had bought and we installed.
My dad was sort of that way too, and he liked to go down, tear down buildings and then use that lumber for building things. We did that down here too. Before we added on our barn, we tore down a barn up south a couple miles. A lot of things we did that way. We had a lot of time, but we didn't have a lot of money. Corn was terrible price. I remember for years where there was so darn much corn in the country, the government was paying us to leave our land lay idle. And I thought that was a terrible waste. And if we could make ethanol out of this land that nothing was being used for, why not make use of it?
You know, when we were kids, I remember my father using a pressure cooker, making beer in the pressure cooker vessel and then having it sit on the counter for a while, and he used the enzymes and he used the yeast that he'd gotten somewhere. And he was experimenting, trying to convince himself, yeah, you can make ethanol and it's not that hard, I think, because he was trying to convince himself.
We had enough work to do with all the livestock, so we didn't really want to grow our livestock operations too much more. So ethanol seemed like another enterprise that would really fit well because the byproduct, of course, could still be fed to the livestock.
I didn't really tell people I was going to do it. We just went ahead and did it. But when they found out what we were doing, they thought we were crazy. Everybody thought we were crazy. But that's what we do. We do crazy things, I guess. When we first were going to build the ethanol plant, the banker wouldn't borrow me the money to build a building the first time. We had to wait a couple of years. It was during the time when there's so many ethanol plants had gone broke, and he knew that, and he thought we'd never make it anyway.
Well, my dad was a real entrepreneur and not afraid to take on anything. He just went and did it, and he didn't think too hard about it, and just got it done, and got it done right. I think some of the neighbors thought we were a little crazy to build an ethanol plant on the farm, and they didn't expect it to succeed, no question. But you know, we just kept plugging along, solving the problems. They did a great job here keeping the capital costs really low, so the risk was lower. And then just solve the process problems one at a time until the plant ran efficiently. I studied ag business in college and really was interested in the banking field. In fact, I was working at a bank when we purchased the Scotland facility.
My involvement with Pullets started back when Jeff was an intern for me at the bank in Cannon Falls. I'd been out to the farm several times. I saw Lowell's plant that he had built to produce ethanol. Lowell was always an innovator, and he was a true blue farmer. And I think the true blue farmer showed through in the plants that they designed and built. I'll never forget the afternoon when Lowell and Rob went to Scotland to bid on some equipment at the plant.
We went out to Scotland just to buy parts, but then the whole plant went so cheap. The plant and everything and the land and everything went so cheap. I think we paid $60,000 for it.
My brother and father and I talked, and they said, well, Jeff, would you like to move out there and run it? I was 22 years old, and I didn't have anything to lose. So I thought, well, it's a challenge, it'd be fun. If I'm gonna do it, now's the time to do it. Sure, I'll go move to South Dakota, someplace I've never been ever, and run the plant. So I drove into Scotland in the middle of an ice storm, pulling a trailer with a lot of my wares, furniture on it. And I thought, wow, what did I get myself into? We were operating on a very small budget. There was a very nice office, two-story office system in the plant, so I literally moved into the plant, made the lab, which had cupboards in it, my kitchen, made the boardroom my living room, and I slept in the manager's office. The first thing we did was assess the ethanol plant. We went into one fermenter, and it literally had fermentation product in it for 7 years. They had not cleaned it out. We found other parts of the plant were just left full of product. All the pipes had frozen and broken in the walls. The pipes had frozen and broken in the process because they had liquid left in them. So they just shut the plant down and walked out the door. They didn't clean things up. So first thing we had to do was fix those things. So we cut holes in the walls, fixed everything up, repatched everything, and started figuring out what we needed to do to make the plant viable.
They took just a common man's approach to making ethanol. Take that farm experience and introduce it to an industry.
My father, my two brothers, and myself were partners in the business. My wife was helping out as a secretary in the office and running the scale and dealing with all of that. So it definitely was a family business and would be that way for many years.
Well, we met in January, and I moved to Scotland in July. And, right before I'd visited in Scotland, he had purchased a house. He had traded 2 motorcycles for the down payment of the house. Jeff always thought big. He still does, and I think a lot of people looked at him and kind of shook their head because, they didn't, just shrugged it off as, Jeff just always had big ideas. And I don't think at the time a lot of people really thought his ideas would come true. It was just talk, but a lot of them did come true.
Myself and the 2 other legislators who were in our district went down and looked at the plant when it was first put up, thinking, gee, something new, this might be something we'd be interested in from the ag side of thing. I didn't meet their dad, but I met the boys that were there, and they were guys that looked just like I did when I wasn't in a suit and tie working on a farm. I sat on appropriation. I was chairman for many years, and I eventually got drawn into the conversation asking, is there dollars available? As soon as I saw them again, after meeting them years earlier, wow, these are the same folks, and wow, they've got a great story, and they brought some evidence with them that said, with a little help, we can make this go. Give us a shot.
Jeff had a drive to keep moving forward just whenever he saw an opportunity or a challenge. He took it on.
I was a young guy, 22 years old, and I had a lot of confidence that I said, we will make this work. We have one in Minnesota. We know how to make ethanol. It runs every day, and we will make it work. And thankfully, they believed me. The funding of the state producer incentive became extremely important. Every single year, we needed $1 million in funding from the state of South Dakota. It was one of the bigger incentive programs. We worked very hard. It was never included in the governor's budget. Every year we had to come up with appropriations for it. And every single year when I went back, had we not received that incentive, the Scotland plant would have shut down and POET never would have happened.
Pretty soon corn was coming in from miles around. This was good for ag. They had the ability to think strategically about economics. I believe in my black heart, if they were working with big stones, they would have made the first wheel.
Jeff Bryan walked into my office and first introduced himself to me and wanted to talk about financing of Bryan Enterprises. From the very get-go, his self-confidence was there, and he made it very obvious to me from that first meeting. He said, I'm here to borrow money on a plant and an industry that's in its infancy, but probably has, and I think, a lot of potential. The board unanimously made the decision to finance Bryan Enterprises, and Bryan Enterprises never looked back.
We started expanding the Scotland plant 2 years after I arrived in Scotland, and we've almost never quit ever since. I cannot tell you how many times the yard out here has been dug up. I can't tell you how many times we said, where are we going to put that next piece of equipment? Where are we going to put that carbon dioxide plant? Where are we going to put that pilot plant? So it's been almost a continuous construction process.
I've worked for POET a long time. I've started in November of 1988, and I don't know where the time has gone.
We all worked together. That was, to me, key. There was a group, a network of people that just got along. I think there was passion, a lot of drive from a lot of people.
It was a very close-knit group. I guess we all helped each other out, stepped up where we had to. And we still do that, but we're just more specialized in our areas. I remember Jeff coming into my office door and standing there going, just think, Deb, in a couple years, maybe even next year, we're going to be flying all over the country to be starting up ethanol plants. That to me seemed so far-fetched, but yet in about 1 year later, we were actually doing that, so.
We'd been operating the Scotland plant for a couple of years, and we're in the middle of expansion. When someone came to us and said, hey, you guys are operating a successful plant here. How would you like to build us one like this? And having no resources to do that and no employees to do that, I said, sure, we'd be happy to build you an ethanol plant just like this.
So we would spend a lot of time going in and visiting with those local officials, helping the city, the county, officials understand what an ethanol plant would mean for their community. And it meant a lot for those communities. I mean, these are businesses, high-tech businesses, good-paying jobs that was able to bring a new industry into rural America and really provide a spot to generate a lot of revenue coming through those businesses.
The best thing that can happen to a small community in South Dakota is to find out that POET is going to come in and put an ethanol plant in, because it immediately generates a lot of economic activity. And in many cases, that's a lifeline to smaller communities who are looking for ways to keep people in their communities, to attract families, and make it a place where people want to live and grow and raise their families and work.
There was no track record for any ethanol facility or any new generation cooperative. We were the first, early on, trying to convince all these people in the state legislature, bankers, and trying to get even the farmers to come together as a group was a major challenge. Jeff, in a lot of instances, come down from Sioux Falls to Missouri, and we'd have a whole schedule of meetings, and we would go put on these meetings to try to entice people to invest. I think all in all, our group we had 86 different meetings to obtain the money, which it was just almost constant.
He knew what he was doing. That was the best thing. I mean, he had the answers to all our questions. He just felt comfortable with working with Jeff.
He was a young tiger at that time, no doubt about it. When I looked at him, I looked at the future.
In the beginning, it took us about 14 months to build a plant. With some changes in the way we engineered them, we were able to actually build plants in 12 months, which was far better than our competition, and we were building actually a higher quality plant.
Jeff used this expression all the time, let's do fun things and change the world for the better. On trips, on a plane ride, he'd talk about changing the world and empowering employees to do what they needed to do to get the job done. Those were very exciting times to see that vision and that passion expressed in those terms to change the world for the better.
We grew up in the business with our last name on the company, and it became obvious that it was time to take that name off the business. The company was no longer about just my passion. It was about the passion of our team members and their drive to succeed, their drive to change the world, their drive to create a new fuel.
Before I came to Poet as a team member, I was an owner of a local marketing firm, and we were hired by, at the time, the brewing companies to develop the new name and brand for the company. It wasn't just the brewing name. Each of the bioethanol facilities at that time had its own name as well. We thought by putting it under one brand, it could just be way more powerful. We came up with some guidelines that we wanted to hit. We wanted to create something that was memorable, something that was short, and something that was really evocative. Even though it's a company that's based off of science and engineering, there was still an art to it. There was just a tremendous passion that came through from everybody we talked to about what was going on here.
I remember being in the first meeting down in the basement, and they come in and they pitch 6 names. And the first 5 were okay. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I hope the 6th name that they're gonna turn over, they have these kind of marketing cards. And they flipped this 6th card over, and the name and the brand, as you see it today, was Poet.
And it kind of went over at that time like a lead balloon.
Nobody understood why you would choose the name Poet. It doesn't sound like agriculture, it doesn't sound like farming, it doesn't sound like ethanol.
And I remember thinking, well, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Jeff looked at me and said, huh, interesting. And so we told them to go back to the drawing board.
As time went on, you know, that name kept coming up. Could sense that there was more acceptance with it.
I think all the while that process was going on, Poet just kept percolating in the back of Jeff's mind.
I really credit Jeff for embracing it, because it took, I think, a lot more courage to select the name Poet than it took creativity to develop the name Poet.
Just as a poet takes everyday words and turns them into something extraordinary, we take corn, something common, and turn it into numerous products that can change the world and make it a much better place to live in. In 2007, we took all of our team members and their spouses down to the Great Hall at the Washington Pavilion. We brought in Neil Armstrong as a guest speaker, and we basically unveiled the name. Only a couple people in the entire room knew the name was going to change.
Conquering adversity is mandatory for success. There's little satisfaction in meeting easy goals. So accept those problems as opportunities. Like Apollo, you have a national goal. Like Apollo, you have a very tough challenge. Like Apollo, you have some options and strategy. Like Apollo, you have some great engineers. Like Apollo, you have skills and determination. But do you have the perseverance?
Changing the name to Poet really brought us above the radar, not just in the States, but worldwide. Poet does business in dozens of countries in big volumes. That name Poet really changed the way we were viewed, not only by the industry, by the energy sector, but also by people doing business with us all over the world.
Everybody wants to know where Poet is on every issue, because it's very important that we're together as an industry. People look to us for leadership in policy, in technology, collaborations. We are a global leader in all these different areas, and our opinion matters.
I always say you need to lead, follow, or get out of the way. No one was stepping up to really take a leadership role to drive this industry. There being a void there, Poet stepped up and took on the responsibility.
Growth Energy was started in 2008 by Jeff Broin. There was this real void. The industry did not have a strong voice in Washington, D.C. that could fight for the needs of the industry and do so smartly in a very intense political environment.
We got several companies to join us. We were successful in launching with a new CEO and a new staff in D.C. We were able to take Growth Energy and grow it over time.
Jeff Broin serves on the board of directors for Growth Energy. We really benefit from him bringing the Poet perspective and insights to the conversation. It is always very exciting to see what is Poet going to do, what step do they take, what direction are they going in. There's a lot of anticipation around the big Poet decisions, and there's a tremendous amount of respect. Jeff will commit what it takes to win. If that's the fight, what do we need to succeed? I'm going to make sure that we have those resources to be able to succeed. That's the reputation that Poet and Jeff have established. That's the reputation they certainly bring to Growth Energy, and the rest of our membership certainly understand and respect that and benefit from that as well.
There's just constant battles around energy and where the country is going to go. We have fought to stay alive and without question survived some very difficult times in the legislature.
From a political standpoint, whether that's the right or left side of the aisle, we've got to be able to convince both sides. And the great thing about bioethanol today is we have a solution for everybody. Poet can bring that entire story together and make sustainability non-political and just practical.
What we do here is not complicated. Sustainability does not have to be complicated. Unfortunately, across this country, it's become a hot button issue that has gotten so complex. Getting our nation and further our world to a place of being able to live in sync with nature. That's what we work for every day.
For the last 150 years, we've taken about 50 million years of fossil fuel, taken it out of the earth and blown it into the environment. Consequently, we're a bit out of sync. What Poet wants to see happen is to return to the surface of the earth. We return to agriculture. We return to the land God gave us and the sun, the soil, and the seed. We can create the same products from renewable sources. That's how it was meant to be, and that's the world we need to return to.
Back in 2000, ethanol was sort of viewed as a grain disposal business. You know, what we saw and what Jeff and I spoke about is there's a better opportunity here. We can go and develop markets where people would actually want to use this because it's creating a better value
I strongly believe that POET has led the way in showing the world that agricultural resources can be used in so many more ways to not just feed animals, but to fuel our cars, to produce industrial products that we need to live on a daily basis. We've shown that you can do it not only in concept, but you can do it at large scale. We have essentially created an agricultural renaissance.
Our world-class research and development teams are working every day to create new processes and new technologies that will allow us to use agricultural products to replace fossil-based products in the future.
When I started here, we really had bioethanol, we had distillers grains. And then we started capturing the oil out of it. And then since then, we've grown into this entire suite of products. When you get into some of the other everyday products that we use, the chair we're sitting on or the clothes on our body, those things can come from renewable resources.
We look out into the future farther than most. We're looking out 5 to 10 years where others are maybe looking out 6 months to 1 year. That has changed the way the company has operated over the years. Between 2016 and 2020, we rolled together more than 50 LLCs that we had created, ethanol plants, supporting companies, and a few other entities. This allowed us to have one strong company, one financial statement, one vision, one mission, one POET. We think bigger, and we make big bets on those thoughts, and I think that's led to a lot of our success. The Flint Hills acquisition in 2021 was unique. We had never purchased a large company and brought on a couple hundred team members. It was an exciting time, and I think it allowed us to learn how to integrate people into our company and make them feel like part of the team. And we combined these two companies in a short period of time.
It grew the company by 40%, and we became, the undisputed leader in the industry at 3 billion gallons. And we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not made some of those key strategic business decisions in terms of aligning how we're structured.
The acquisition of Flint Hills Resources was not just about buying more gallons and some plants. It was about a transition to a new future for our company. We're going to be a major player in the transition of energy going forward.
We went on this trip when I was 15 years old. We went and helped fix up a deaf school, and we spent time in Africa.
While we were over there, we made a lot of stops going to and from our work site every day, and my dad would often make us pull the van over so we could get out and look at the crops. And he was pretty shocked and saddened by what he saw. It was nearly harvest time, and we were seeing knee-high stalks of corn, with ears that were half the size of what we see here.
Realizing that and making some phone calls and trying to understand Kenyan agriculture a little bit better, Seeds of Change was born.
We have 3 core missions, primarily in Africa. We have Mission Hope, which is our educational initiative. So not only do we work with the School for the Deaf that we originally visited in Kenya, but we also work with several other educational opportunities for women in high school and college. We also have Mission Grow, which is our agricultural initiative. And so through Mission Grow, we're working with farmers right now primarily in Kenya and Uganda to go in and do boots on the ground operations to revolutionize agriculture in these rural parts of Africa. And then lastly, we have Mission Thrive, which is our human health and environmental initiative. And so we work in several countries through that as well to implement programs for health and wellness. There's a lot of opportunity to grow and change with Seeds of Change. The support and passion we've seen not only from POET team, but folks outside of that have helped grow Seeds of Change as an organization make me really excited about where we can go in the future.
think I'm most proud of the more than 3 million lives that agriculture has impacted so far in Africa. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We can get to tens of millions over time. So to watch the entire economy of an area transform because we're using the sun, the soil, and the seed to enrich people, and then that goes out into their economy and drives the small towns and the cities, that's really exciting to me. In addition to Seeds of Change, we fund dozens and dozens of different charity functions here in town. We fund things throughout the country as well. We fund scholarship programs. We have really tried to give back, even in the communities where our plants are located.
We've been so blessed to come alongside these communities in an economic way, to also come alongside them and be able to steward dollars back into these communities that lift up these communities is absolutely everything.
It's something that we all, I think, have a passion to give back to other people. God has blessed us in so many ways, so it's kind of our way to give back. I mean, it's all about changing the world.
The people at Poet have a real drive to change the world. We don't just come to work every day to do our jobs, to be an accountant, to be an engineer, to be a manager. We come to work every day to change the world, and I think that truly has made a difference in how our people feel and how hard they work to make things happen.
We're a part of a bigger picture, a bigger mission, a greater goal. It's a very worthy goal, and it's something that I think anyone can get behind in this day and age. And so I think we need those people that are on fire and ready to do something about it.
We're not satisfied. We're trying to get better every day. And I think as a company, as Poet, we're a culture of people that are never satisfied. We're a culture of people that are trying to better ourselves and become better each day.
The people make the business. We may have intellectual property, that's important. We may have plants and assets, and those are important. We may have capital and resources. Those are just tools, but it's the people that make a difference.
And without question, we have attracted some of the best talent, I think, in the country, perhaps in the world, come to work here and to drive our technology, to drive all the different parts of this company. Without question, that has been the reason for our success.
It doesn't matter what position you're in, what your title is, where you're at in an organizational chart. We are all part of this one Poet team. Don't think that just because I'm the president of the company or Jeff's the CEO or somebody else is a manager that they have better ideas. Some of the great things that we have in place today, some of the great innovations we have today, came from somebody in the front lines.
New ideas can come from anywhere, and they often come from recombinations of other ideas, recombinations of ideas from the business side, from the engineering side, and research side. Very few new ideas can be attributed, I think, to one person. We collaborate throughout the organization with every part of the Poet group.
The reason that they have been able to see things that other people haven't seen is because there is a tremendous vision for the future, but also passion to make it happen. That's something that you can't really train. You either have it or you don't. Jeff Broin and his team at Poet possess not only the knowledge and the skill, but they also have a passion. If you've got in life a passion to do something really significant for your state, your region, or your country, the sky really is the limit.
"20 years ago, Poet was a very quiet company. We often say we were flying below the radar back then. We have gone from a small family company to a large major corporation that's globally recognized in all different areas of the economy, the environment, the energy sector. It's been extremely exciting to be a part of it.
When I was growing up on the farm in the 1980s, I watched about 30% of my neighbors go bankrupt and leave. And at that point, I thought agricultural commodities could be used for more. We got into this business to help farmers, to help the price of corn, and today we process 1 billion bushels of corn, which is about 7% of the U.S. corn crop. We have taken agriculture from a net loss to a very profitable industry that can now grow and provide the products we need and the raw materials we need to make more clean, green products for America and the world.
We add to the food chain. We add value to agriculture. We can do that while being in rhythm with nature versus continuing to take and take and take from the planet and deplete our natural resources and pushing our world further out of balance from where it should be.
What is next for POET's future? I continue to be surprised by the things that, if I look back, that we've been able to do and things that have come our way. What I do know is we're going to grow.
I think that there's always room for improvement, there's always room to innovate, there's always room to do something differently, and there's opportunity everywhere if you know where to look.
People always ask me, where do you see the company going? What's your goals? Where's your vision? How many gallons? How many plants? And I think those are all measurements, but that's not what we're about, because that doesn't create anything. What I see is an unending opportunity that continues to be evolving. For the last 100 years, everything has evolved around petroleum, and now we're the very first thing that's more competitive than petroleum, and with that, we can change the world.
To think that we have created the first alternative to gasoline ever in the history of the world is pretty amazing. But when I think of the fact that I get to be a part of that I get to work alongside all of these team members and Jeff and the company to make that happen, it's almost a bit surreal. And of course, very rewarding at the same time.
We are an innovative company that is on the leading edge of everything that happens in this industry. POET is going to be involved in things that we aren't even thinking about today. We like to say it all the time, we're just getting started.
I think there's a lot more that can be done and will be done. Jeff has a lot he wants to do yet. There's always a roadblock in this industry, and it hasn't stopped from day one. So if he hits a roadblock, he'll push through.
We have encountered hundreds, if not thousands, of problems over the years. We've encountered times where it was tempting to throw in the towel. No question, the perseverance that we learned taught us to find a way. POET has changed the world. But the biggest opportunity is yet ahead. We have more opportunity in the future than we've ever had before to make the world a better place. It's going to take all of us pulling together, things that maybe I can't even envision today. But we will change the world through the power and the people at this company.